Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Welcome back to the program, and welcome back. Brenda Vassaur Taylor joins us on the phones from Conduit for Commerce, here to talk more about this Conduit for Commerce scorecard. Brenda, welcome back.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate you having me.
So this scorecard, it dropped on Tuesday. I can't get enough of it. It's really fun to study. What kind of feedback have you been getting about the scorecard?
Well, we've really gotten some good, positive feedback, strong interest. I mean, we've had several people, a few that I know of, who've already written articles. Of course, we've had. Hang on, my computer has just decided to pull you up while I'm talking. At any rate, we've had a few people decide to write articles, and hopefully there'll be more, which certainly, stokes the conversation, which is what we want. We like to discuss our issues. We want everyone to understand to the point that they're interested in understanding, and it's just been great. I mean, to see if more people will be able to look at the scorecard and see what a great potential we have down in Little Rock compared to the prior two sessions, it's very exciting. I mean, we had a group of Republicans to hold back a lot more of things that could have happened. And, we didn't see that in the last session for sure. So just some good progress. Were
you surprised at how the results came out at all? Like which specifically this senator or this state representative got here or here? Did that surprise you at all?
Well, what we did, we created 3 different ways to score their votes. And, we didn't have anything to do with the votes themselves. The votes are those of the legislators. And like I had said Tuesday, in the Senate we scored 33 floor votes and 3 committee votes.
Yeah.
In the House we scored 35 floor votes, 12 committee votes. The votes were the legislators. We created the formulas and the bills that we were going to score, of course. And when we saw the results, I really do have to say I was surprised at some. Overall, they were sort of grouped like I expected, but the refining that the way that we scored with 3 different methods, was very interesting and very exciting, and it clearly presents the policy votes of the legislators. I mean, it's a trend, and maybe the legislators themselves, who we've certainly had some negative feedback from legislators, and maybe that will show them that their votes actually do pass policies.
Yeah.
And the policies are clear. And, so I hope they'll use that information and go with it next time.
Yeah, well, specifically, the reason I asked if it's surprising is because I was looking, I talked about this earlier, but you got State Representative Clint Penzo, coming in number 6 or 7 on that list out of the House. It's surprising. I mean, you look at the fact that that Conduit did not support him; they supported his opponent in the primary, and yet here he is on that list. You know what I mean? To me, that just gives everything more credibility.
Well, yeah. Clint is someone that one of our organizations even supported his opponent in the primary. But good for Clint. I'm very excited to see that. There were some people that voted, their scores were not as high this year compared to 2 years ago, who are great friends of ours. Will we support them again? We certainly will. Hopefully next time, everybody who is not happy with the results, maybe they'll read the scorecard a little closer before they vote. Certainly we hope so. And, still, like I said, we're encouraged.
That's very good. All right, so that's some you've gotten some positive feedback. It's good to hear that. Let's talk specifically about some of the negatives that people have seen. Earlier in the week, I talked about State Representative Charlie Collins. He's kind of gone through the different stages of grief. He originally called the scorecard fake news. Then he ended up complimenting the scorecard for scoring one of his bills correctly. And it really just kind of brought it out. It's not personal. This is just about policy, and it's pretty easy to figure out where you wind up on that list if you just go look at the list of bills that you guys have provided and how they voted. But Charlie Collins tweeted things like, to get the best score, just don't vote. Then you have State Representative David Meeks. He's on Twitter. He agrees with Charlie Collins' statement, which is strange because David Meeks made the top 10. So he agreed with the statement. So talk a little bit about how you scored the legislators who were absent versus legislators who were voted present, and specifically feel free to bring up Brian King on that, because that's what everyone seems to be getting hung up on.
That's a very fair question, and I thought I had answered it Tuesday. But, it's one thing to hear someone talk about something, and then when you look at it and read it yourself, maybe you weren't listening when they told you. So maybe people now will listen, and I think that's why we're coming back today to talk about it again. So now that we have your attention, let me explain Brian. First of all, we did not give him extra credit because he did not vote. Okay? When he didn't show up in Little Rock, we didn't say, yay, Brian, we wish more people wouldn't show up, so we're going to give you extra credit. Well, first of all, we did not do that. We only scored votes. Now, anyone who's familiar with the system knows that a present vote or a non-voting vote counts the same thing as a no. And so anyone who is there on the floor and does not push that button to vote, that's basically a no vote, because it takes 51 positive votes. It doesn't take the majority of a quorum. It takes the majority of the chamber to pass a bill, right?
Right.
So when Brian, for example, or, I don't know who all didn't come up, but because of the issues rising to the surface through these last few days with Brian, we went back and looked at, specifically how many times was Brian absent. And we saw that he was absent for 7 of the floor votes that we scored, and he had excused absences. We checked that. And we didn't score Brian. Brian did not get any kind of score, not a positive or negative. Now, because his not being there was basically a no vote, to be fair to Brian, we should have given him, a no vote. We should have scored his absence as a no, but we did not. We didn't score it at all. But just to be fair to the critics, I went back and recalculated Brian's score as though we had given him, credit for a no, since that's effectively what he did by not showing up. And his overall score dropped by 1 point. He became 195 raw score, but he was still in first place in the Senate. Now, looking at it a little more, from every angle, and I told you on Tuesday, we used 3 different methods to score these votes. One of those was just basically excluding the committee vote on one method. 2 methods, we included the committee votes. The third method, we did not include committee votes, and we simply looked at each floor vote and said, how many times did a legislator vote with Conduit for Action scorecard? How many times? And so we got an overall score for that. And had we just taken the raw number of how many times they voted with us, I think that Brian, not giving him 0 credit for the times that he was absent, his overall score, let's see, I had it pulled up, and I actually hit it. Let me see if I can bring it back. Well, at any rate, his score went up 3 points when we gave him credit for a no vote, but he was third place without it. Had we given him credit for the no, he became first place. So why is that?
And that was just the raw score. That was so the raw score, which was, the first go around, and then you do the other 2 criteria.
Well, just because I'm talking and not paying attention, when I click the button, it totally did away with my scores. Let me see if I can find that again. Brian had 25 times that he had voted with Conduit, like I told you, to give everyone, tell me how many times you voted with us, and I'll add those up. Everyone, would count everybody's vote. He voted with Conduit on those 33 bills 25 times, giving him no credit when he was absent. Mm-hmm. Had we given him credit as a no vote when he was absent, his score would have been 28.
Yeah.
28 times.
So,
but we didn't do that. We didn't score it at all. But I'm just saying his detractors want to claim foul. Well, actually, had we done, included his score when he wasn't there, his score would have been higher in the area where let's compare how many times he voted with us.
And I know you're not saying what I'm about to say, but it does seem, the no votes are so valuable, and not showing up kind of can help keep more taxpayer money in the taxpayers' pockets sometimes. I mean, I think it actually might be worth looking at, from that regard. We're talking with Brenda Vassaur Taylor. Conduit for Commerce is the organization. We're talking about this scorecard. Now let's get to another question, another criticism. We addressed David Meek's criticism, Charlie Collins' criticism about Brian King. Now Dan Greenberg. Okay, Dan Greenberg writes over at the Arkansas Project, and he writes a whole lot. Of course, Dan Greenberg is a very big cheerleader for the tort reform bill that we're all going to be voting on the ballot in November 2018. Of course, your scorecard doesn't give positive marks for supporting that version of tort reform. I feel like I need to point that out. But he does raise a point about counting committee votes. He's quite obsessed about that. He thinks that if one representative with the same values as another gets more points because they are on a particular committee with a vote that you scored, and the other is not on that committee, that it's somehow unfair. What is your response to that, Brenda?
I told you we used 3 different methods. One was to exclude committee votes completely. The other 2 included committee votes. One method was to determine the impact of a bill, and the bill either legislator either got a 1, 2, or 3 voting with conduit. They got a minus 1, 2, or 3 voting the opposite of conduit because of the impact of the bill. The tort reform bills were a bill, and the committee vote was considered a 2. So that shows you. And why didn't we count it as a 3? Because the bill included some good and some bad, like I said the other day. Now, also, we had the third method was weighting the bills, and that's not the same as considering the impact of a bill. But the reason that committee votes were considered in this, now think about it, we have had a lot of activity and discussion about the importance of committees and the House giving the Speaker of the House the authority to appoint all the committee memberships from this point forward. Committee memberships are a big deal because that determines who's going to get to vote on a bill on the floor, whether a bill will ever make it there. So when those committee men and women vote, that vote has to count. It is important. And so when they vote to put a bill out or to keep it from passing, like the Medicaid disclosure bills, that matters. And the public needs to know that the policies that those committee people hold are reflected in these votes. Now, like I said, we used 3 different methods to equalize, and then we compared if we just gave everybody one number, one point every time they voted with us. We took those scores and compared them when we actually applied the weights or the impact and the committee votes. There really was not much difference at all. For example, in the House, Bob Ballinger, came in at one level compared to the whole 100, and he's on the same line on the grid with comparing how many times did you vote with conduit. But those committee votes are important, in our opinion, because if the state, through its committee election or appointment method, gives a committee member the power to decide if a bill makes it to the floor, we're going to count that for how that committee person votes. And I had one legislator tell me, well, where did you even get these votes? Which I was stunned because if she doesn't know where I find them, that's rather disturbing. And then she said, well, the committee votes aren't recorded.
Yep.
Well, there, Paul, is one of your issues.
Yep.
And guess what? Conduit did have to go in and actually video some of them to get them, but we have a record of all of those votes that we scored.
That is an incredible piece of information. So some of the criticism has been you shouldn't be able to record the committee votes because those committee votes are not recorded. That goes in direct contradiction to their excuse when we say all committee votes should be recorded, and their response is, no, we don't have time for that, but you should be able to sacrifice your time, get off of work, and the meetings are open to the public so you can come in and you can sit there and you can watch how your representative votes, and that way you'll know. And so for those who are willing to make the extra effort, in this instance, I want to point out that Conduit did make the extra effort, have to go in these committee rooms and actually count the votes and make a record for ourselves because the state won't do it. They'd rather the people be in the dark. So I'm about to go off on one of my tangents, but that's extremely, I can't believe that was said to you. That's unbelievable.
Well, to clarify, she did not say that we didn't have the right to record the vote. She simply said they weren't recorded, so there was no way that we could have included this in our scoring. And so, maybe, as they say, we'll get them on the record. That's the whole point. If the legislators believe they're not on the record, they may actually act differently. And I believe for those who have had negative reactions to this scorecard, because some people, including Dan Greenberg, have said, how dare you score a Democrat higher than these Republicans? And, I said, I didn't score anything. I just simply measured their votes according to our formulas. And, I did read Dan's piece, and to respond to that, yes, Dan is paid by the people that want the tort reform bill passed, and his wife does work for the Nursing Home Association's PACs, and that is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan Greenberg, and so he has an interest in writing an article like that. Our organization has an interest. I was accused by this legislator who was, saying, well, the rumor is that you're attacking people who voted for the tort reform bill, and my response was, she goes, oh, I see your agenda, and I'm thinking, yes, we do have an agenda, but it is for limited government. I mean, we're not getting anything out of this. I don't know how many people know that. I'm not being paid. Our organization does not go out and seek money to figure out how we can pass bills for other people. We are simply a group seeking smaller, limited government and prosperity for every citizen in our state.
Some people, very well said. We're talking with Brenda Vassaur Taylor from Conduit for Commerce. Some people have had the question, why doesn't Conduit for Commerce, when they score their bills, look at social issues and things like the Second Amendment? What's your response to that?
Well, that's a good point. Social issues, Second Amendment issues, those are all important to us individually, and but we don't project that onto our organization. I think today, in today's culture in Arkansas, and seeing that the state has gone red, we call those even low-hanging fruit issues, because a Republican, you're almost not going to get elected in this current moment in Arkansas if you're not a Republican. And, of course, all Republicans, or nearly all Republicans who stay in office at any rate, and now a lot of Democrats are going to have, they're going to be pro-life, they're going to be pro-Second Amendment, and those are issues that we care about, but our organization is focused on economic freedom.
Yeah. That's very well said.
I say that you're not going to, if you can't afford bullets because somebody else has all your money, the fact that you can carry a gun is not quite as meaningful.
That's good. I like that. Can you talk a little bit about, some folks out there who haven't voted for limited government and economic freedom are upset about the scorecard. And I kind of get the feeling that it doesn't really matter what methodology is used. They would disagree with just the policy goals, and it's just, you know what I mean. Like there'd be nothing that you could say to satisfy them. What do you think about that?
Well, like I said, we tried to we devised a method. We chose bills that represent our economic freedom filter, the three issues that are important. Do bills grow government? Do they grow dependency on government? Does it spend money we don't have? Once those bills are run through that filter, do they? And we also consider the transparency of a bill. When it's determined to be a part of those issues, we then scored the votes according to, I would think that we're getting a lot of splashback from our legislators who are more akin to the establishment, and they are very hostile toward this scorecard because it says this is how you voted. But now someone else might compare their words. Well, that's what they said they wanted. It may be what they wanted, but it's not how they voted. And as one of my friends, reminds me, don't worry about defending yourself. Friends don't need it. Your enemies won't believe it. But I want to say that anybody with honest questions, we are very anxious, to answer those. And then I'll also say that our policies, to some, they want to argue, are so extreme. Well, they may be, but they're very consistent with what our Lieutenant Governor, Tim Griffin, talks about all the time. They're very consistent with what Bruce Westerman has promoted and tried to get passed. These are people who've been and are involved in Little Rock and our legislature, And, if we're so extreme, those guys have to be grouped with it. And then we've had, people say, well, yeah, you're just wanting the perfect and you're giving up the good for that. Well, when I look at this scorecard and see that some of our primary senators have the same voting records as our most liberal Democrats, that's okay, but own it.
Yeah.
And this scorecard, people can say whatever they want to. I didn't vote. These are the votes of the legislators. And I'm sorry that Dan wants to claim, well, I won't talk about it, and he has a story behind that. But, I could also release my text, and people might have a different story.
Exactly.
But, that's for another day.
Yeah, exactly. Brenda Vassaur Taylor, conduitforcommerce.org. Great scorecard, great explanation. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Paul.
All righty, folks. It's Johnny Cash Friday. We're going to take a break. Back in a minute.